Well, welcome to Majesty in the Moment. I am Majesty AliNICOLE WOW. Thanks so much for joining me. If you are new to this particular segment, this is an impromptu segment where I come forth and I just share whatever is hitting me in the moment to really speak about. So there's no planned agenda, and this particular segment can go in many directions. A little bit of my background for those who are not familiar with my brand. I am a multi-mission preneur, and I am cross-trained in over 200 areas and have over 300 publications on Amazon that serve different industries. And so when I'm in this particular segment, as I mentioned, that I could break off into a lot of different functionalities, whether it be a training, could be motivational speaking, it could be some type of activation. So just buckle up and be ready for whatever comes up during this time. So I want to just start off by focusing on gratitude. And it's important to be very appreciative of the life, that we live and the things that we have. And a lot of times people focus on what they think are major things, but I look at life as one big thank you. And it's one big wow experience. And we need to see all of life as something to cherish and to appreciate. Even the small things, a smile, someone gives you a nice compliment. Sometimes that can be worth $1 million to you, especially depending on where you are in your journey during that time. There is often a lot of focus on materialism, and there's nothing wrong with material things, but sometimes those things can become a distraction from what's most important. Who are you being as an individual? Are you bringing forth the best version of yourself, right? And the best version of yourself is not someone who just has a lot of material possessions and a lot of what society deems as worthy for accolades, so to speak. Is who are you? Who are you being? Are you truly being the person that, not that you just want to be, but who you're really called to be? Because there is a big difference. A lot of times people can focus on, yes, this is the type of person I want to be. I want to be successful, and I want to have these different titles, and I want to make sure my cheddar is right, so to speak. I live in this type of house, drive this type of car. And again, nothing wrong with those things. But ultimately, those things aren't going to make you happy at the soul, so to speak. Are you happy? There are plenty of people who have a lot of materialism, fame, and fortune, so to speak, but it's cost them to their soul on multiple levels. And they're very disconnected from the truth of who they are, right? You can have it all for sure. So it's not a one or the other, but as you are starting to prepare for success, so to speak, just make sure that you aren't losing yourself in the process. So I started off talking about gratitude and being thankful and appreciative. And the reason why it is important to be appreciative of every aspect of life is so that you can uniquely define who you are and be able to establish your identity based on the things that are important. Because going back to the materialism and different titles and different things, if those go away tomorrow, who are you? If those go away, are you feeling less than, or are you still feeling like yourself? And being able to leverage the power of the present moment to bring forth the next best iteration of who you are, your truth, right? So as I mentioned, this particular segment can go in a lot of different directions. I felt myself already kind of in motivational empowerment speaking mode, and I just allow the present moment to guide me and what to talk about. So I started off talking about gratitude. We got into talking about being the best version of yourself, so to speak. And it doesn't mean that this is going to be the core topic of this particular segment. It's just where we started. But since we are there, something that I am feeling guided, to talk about on the note of continuing to be the best version of yourself. Also, you want to make sure that you aren't just following some template that society has said, this is what makes you the best version of yourself. You really have to check in and be connected to the truth of who you are. And let me say this, that is an evolutionary experience or expansion, I should say. Who I was at one point in my journey is not who I am now. And that version of me reflected what was the best version of me for that phase. But things change and they shift. And so you have to be very open to allow yourself to evolve. And the things that made you, quote unquote, successful in the past, maybe that's not the path of this next phase of your life. So again, you have to check in, but just don't let society tell you that if you don't have this, then you're not this. You really have to be able to define that for yourself. Success and even the best version of yourself, you have to define that for yourself. So let me play the devil's advocate a little bit against what I just said, because earlier I talked about how it's not just about the person you think you should be versus the person that you're called to be, all right? And there is a difference. There are some distinctions there, but both of your desires, so to speak, and I'll just say God's desires can marry together and be one as the same in a harmonious union. But again, you just have to make sure that who you think you're supposed to be and who you desire to be is not based on a template that is telling you, again, this is what makes you successful. This is what's going to make you credible in the eyes of others, so to speak. Who are you really here to be? And who are you really here to please? A lot of people talk about they want to be in God's will and they want to please God. But you have to be careful with that too, because whose version of God are you aspiring to be? All right. Do you know the truth of whom God has made you to be? Or is that being given to you also by a template within a religious structure? So, that gets into a whole nother teaching and training, so to speak, and I definitely can step into that. But I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. From what I was saying is that you have to come to know you. And I think maybe that's a good core focus to kind of build upon at this point is knowing you, knowing the truth of you according to God, sources, definition, and perspective. And again, that can be something that is an evolving expansion of who you are, right? But how do you get to know that? Of course, there are a lot of self-help books out here that try to tell you the best way to come into your own, so to speak, of being who you are. Again, that's a template. Some of the advice are great jump-off points, so to speak, but you also don't want to wrap yourself into somebody else's formula. You have to be able to know your own unique identity and how to really unpack that. And a lot of the work that I do, even with intentional journaling and different processes, basically help to bring out what's your own unique information. What's your own unique information? What is your God encoding? What is your divine DNA, right? And so I have other works around this particular focus, and anything that I share during these segments that I have products around, I definitely will make sure that I put those in the description. I'll put those in the description. So yeah, so again, since I've felt guided to talk about this, and it seems that that's the core theme that is continuing to come up here, is let's be intentional in the moment about you really starting to uncover this newer and truer version of who you are, according to God's definition and perspective about you. All right, so there's the part of you you think you know about yourself, and then there's the aspects of you that you're not really aware. And so I've actually talked about this in another segment, where focusing on 3 to 5 things that God wants you to know about you. And in this particular segment, I feel guided that you should ask yourself, what are 3 to 5 things that I need to be most aware of about myself? Because we have to realize we don't always know who we are, because that, again, is forever evolving and expanding. So you have to be able to continuously look at yourself and the emergence of who you are becoming, and who you have become. There's a reason why the Bible talks about us dying to ourselves daily, right? Because there are different aspects of yourself that you have to look at and say, okay, that iteration of me, as great as it was, maybe today it is taking on a different shape, right? And you have to be able to look at that. You won't know this, though, if you aren't actually taking the time to be present and to get to know yourself on that level. Also, getting to know God in a different way, and asking God questions. What is the best way for us to have a relationship during this time? You can do this with Christ as well. What's the best way, so that you're not caught in some type of routine and ritual that just keeps you, I'm reading my devotion, I'm reading my Bible, I'm listening to worship music, I'm attending this, I'm doing that. Have you checked in to even understand where the relationship is going, right? So when you do this, you're also doing this for yourself. So taking yourself in this same context and being able to look at, what is it that I need to bring forth now? What should be my relationship with myself at this juncture? It's important questions to ask. People don't typically ask themselves that. They're robotic. They're just, on autopilot, so to speak, just doing what they feel is right to do. And also, too, doing what they feel has always worked. The saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Don't fix it if it's not broke. Keep doing what's working. But you still have to check in, because even what's working can be a distraction from you not actually embarking on a next level, right? See, I can talk for days about a lot of different things as it relates to this, but again, just focusing on this next best version of you and what that relationship looks like. You deepen your relationship with yourself, you're going to deepen your relationship with your creator. Sometimes we get it backwards, we get it twisted, and we think, well, I focus on my relationship with God, then that will improve my relationship with myself. That is true to a point, all right? I remember years ago, and some of you probably have heard me talk about this just in different talks, in different works, if you've been following my brand for quite some time, where I talked about having a conversation, and this has been over a decade ago, with the Lord. And I remember I was like, I want to take our relationship to the next level, and different things. And God basically said to me that our relationship is fine, but your relationship with yourself sucks. And basically that was how it came out. And I guess it was put to me like that so that it would really get my attention, because of course you're thinking, well, the Lord would not be speaking to would not be speaking to somebody like that. But it actually was in that tone or texture, that terminology, so to speak. That's the way it translated, is that you spend a lot of time, deep devotion, and having a relationship with me in this way, but yet there are other areas where you neglect your self-care and your soul care, and then wonder why different other aspects of life aren't working, especially as it relates to people mishandling or mistreating or, in certain ways. And so that really got my attention. And when I started doing coaching, my first actual coaching program that I launched back in 2008, 2009, it was called The Valuable You. And it was all about being able to be restored back to your original state and sense of worth, according to God. And that led me on a deeper journey, of course, with myself, but also being able to help others in the process to be able to uncover that valuable aspect of who they are. And then starting to live your life from that place. And it changes the game tremendously. It does. And so, again, going back to what I was saying in terms of relationship with yourself, is that you have to come to know yourself and not get caught up in all of the things that we have been told are what we need to focus on. Again, there are several people very immersed in their faith walk, but they're very much disconnected from the truth of who they are. And then they end up misinterpreting even what the spiritual texts teach. And this applies to any faith background, okay? So when you get so immersed and caught up in a lot of different dynamics of what you think you're supposed to be doing that makes you a great person of faith, again, if you are not taking care of yourself, then your relationship with Christ, with God, with however you term that for yourself, it's going to come up short, because you're not really allowing that power to work through you to improve, in a sense, different areas of your life that could be. And again, people start misinterpreting what those texts mean, and they think, well, I'm here to be a doormat or so, and I need to turn the other cheek and all these different things. They just get it really twisted. They do. And it's simply because they are not connected to their own truth. They have either bought into some interpretation or some perspective that possibly could not be aligned for who they are and who they are becoming. So that's why the relationship dynamics of your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your creator, your relationship with life itself, that is the Trinity. There's a reason why Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. If you know the way, you know the truth, the life is going to be produced. So you need to know the way to be in harmonious relationship with yourself, right? And to be in conscious union with God, right? Way, truth. What is the truth about you at this phase? What was true at one phase may not be true, and you're still trying to play off of that particular quote unquote life script that was for that time, right? It's like looping around in a chapter when it's time to turn the page and get into the next chapter or even the next book, right? So again, I could go into I can go into a lot around these, around these different dynamics. I want to keep this particular segment short, so to speak. It's probably already over a short span, but I don't want to go on too long, because I really want you to take in and be able to go back and listen to this several times and just give you some considerations in terms of different ways to think, right? Different ways to be with your relationship with life. Like I said, the Trinity for sure is definitely the higher source connection, God, that relationship with yourself, and relationship with life. Because if you don't have a symphony of success in those three areas, you're going to come up short. You're going to play off key. Going back to what God said to me, again, it's been over a decade ago, where it's like, we got a good relationship, but your relationship with yourself, it lacks the commitment, AKA sucks. So you have to work on that. And trust me, I did, and brought forth multiple works as it relates, to that particular area. And it is an ongoing thing because, again, the value that is established and recognized at one phase, that can play out for a season, but then sometimes there's a next level of how do you take care of yourself now? How do you value yourself? How do you honor yourself at this phase of the journey? And again, what different shifts do you need to make in terms of your relationship with God, your relationship with Christ? How are you being during this time, right? So we have to look at those things. Sometimes that's the big elephant in the room that people don't want to address. And then looking at life, there are so many people who are immersed in their spiritual practice, but they're not connected to life. There's a saying where you can be so, was it spiritually high or something, but no earthly good, something to that meaning you're not grounded. You are not actually rooted in the very things that you are immersing yourself in. So if you don't have the balance of understanding the spiritual aspects and then the practicality that also is married along with that, then you're going to miss it. So yeah, if you're only looking for God to speak to you through the Bible, you are clearly missing it, because there's signs and synchronicities and people that are being used constantly. So if you ignore that part of, God's omnipresentness and way of beingness, and you're just looking for everything to come out of scripture, you're going to miss it. You're not going to find how to fix a toilet seat going in the Bible. However, you will find that if you ask for wisdom, as James talks about, God will give it to you without finding fault. So you can find scriptures and wisdom and then apply it to a situation, but sometimes you're not going to get just a direct, not going reading the text and get a direct message about a specific thing. If you need a plumber, you won't find a scripture in the Bible for plumbing, so to speak, not literal, but God can use someone to point you in the right direction. Or there's I'm going to date myself here, going back to phone books, or so you can look up on the internet or so if you need to find a plumber, right? So you have to have some balance. And I know that may sound a little bit sarcastic, but there are times where people miss the practicality of the human experience. You cannot neglect that aspect. You simply cannot. So again, if you don't have a relationship with God, with Source, you don't have a good relationship with yourself and understanding, and you don't have a good relationship with your life, again, you are not going to have a symphony for success. That is a trinity that has to be played out. And I know for myself personally, when I don't have the harmony there, the conscious union there, stuff simply does not work the way that it could. Sometimes it's working, but it's not really working in, I guess, in the more expanded capacity. As Jesus told Mary and Martha when he was visiting their home, and Martha was so concerned about all the preparations and mad at Mary because she wasn't coming to help her with all the fixings and everything because they had company. She was seated at the feet of Jesus. And he specifically said to her that, yes, those things, to Martha, those things are important. But right now, she's choosing the good part. She's choosing the better advantage here. This is not an everyday occurrence. You can wash dishes and fix food at any other time. And yes, it's necessary for now, but don't miss the better part, getting distracted in your routine, being on autopilot, and then getting upset and frustrated about it because someone else is choosing not to be a robot at that time. Okay, I'm getting started here, so I better start bringing this to a close because that breaks into a whole nother type of exploration and teaching, so to speak. But you get the point. The point is that you have to look for what are the better aspects, the good, the better, the best, so to speak. It's not making judgments on, you know, well, I guess it is in a sense. I was, it's not really making a judgment in terms of this is the better thing, but in some cases it is the better thing. I know that there are a lot of schools of thought out there that teach, well, you should not be in judgment of things. Things need to be neutral. There is no good, no bad, no indifferent. Life just is. Yes and no. You really have to be careful with those types of understandings because they don't apply across the board. There certainly are things that are going to be better than others. And again, that could be according to preference or so, but I think just in general, I don't think that Jesus obviously was not making a mistake of telling Martha, that's good. That's what you're doing it's fine. It's not wrong to be doing that. But because you are doing it, you are missing a better opportunity here. So there are better opportunities and ways that we should maximize this experience. And that's basically what I'm talking here. When you have a better relationship with yourself, then you can have a better relationship with God. You can have a better relationship with life. But you simply cannot neglect any of those areas if you want harmony. If you want to be the absolute best, you are going to have a solid connection with Source, a solid connection with God, because God lives in you. Okay. So having that knowing of that presence in you is definitely going to enhance and expand your relationship. But sometimes it's going to have to start with you practically looking at you and not just in a traditional spiritual context. All right. So sometimes there is kind of the categorization, but the categorization also comes together in harmony. I go back to the symphony and I was in concert band, when I was in school, which has been forever ago. But there are certain instruments that is a sheet of music for a particular instrument for a particular song. And whoever's playing the clarinet, which I play the clarinet, learn that sheet of music and learn the part to play. Then there are other, instruments that have their part. But when they come together, it's harmonious. So it's categorized in terms of the learning and the applying. But when it comes together for the functionality, everything flows. So it pretty much is the same. There's your relationship with God, there's your relationship with yourself, and there's your relationship with life. But it is really one cohesive experience that's taking place, right? But again, sometimes those aspects are developed or they're cultivated. They're nurtured individually for a collective embodiment of expansion. So I am going to bring this to a close here because, as I mentioned, I can start breaking off into a lot of different functionalities around just this topic here that would then spiderweb into other topics, and then I'll just be going on. But I do hope that this has been valuable for you. And also I'm going to link the playlist of other segments here. And as I mentioned, it's all about the power of the present moment for me and being able to bring my level of preparation and skill to the table to be unformed, to just flow with whatever is coming up. I love being able to do this. And like I said, not having a set planned agenda. Certainly I have trainings and things that are intentional around that, but this particular segment is about the impromptu-ness. It is about being in the present moment. It is about being unrehearsed. And just knowing that the preparation has already taken place to be able to facilitate this. The more that individuals can get into spiritual spontaneity, so to speak, that's the way that you can really allow yourself to be used, to be a vessel, to be a conduit of the rich experience that you have had. And then also, too, to be enhanced as you are enhancing others. When we can engage life more in the power of the present moment, it just changes everything. There is a time and place for everything under the sun. There is the time, and I do this, and I've talked about this in other segments. Yep, there's times where here's what I'm specifically going to teach on, and here are the objectives and where I'm going with this. But then there are the times to just, just be in the space, to just be in the space. So again, I hope that this has been valuable. And be sure to check the description. And I certainly look forward to being back with you for more impromptu segments. Again, today we talked about a variety of things. We start off talking about gratitude and the appreciation, for life itself and in general, big things, small things. And then we started talking about being able to bring forth the best version of yourself, and then starting to know what that really entails, and not being conformed to a specific template, really getting to know your own truth according to God. And then we broke off into talking about the relationships and the different aspects of having the relationship with yourself, having the relationship with Source, with God, and then having a relationship with life, and how you bring that into a harmonious symphony, and then be able to start creating success templates for yourself at each phase, and knowing how to shift gears and just being, truly connected. So I hope I summarized that. Again, everything's impromptu, so I've got to just do this by recall in terms of things that we covered, during this time. Again, I hope this has been valuable to you, and I'm wishing you the absolute best, and you're in my highest thoughts and prayers until we come back for another segment. Take care and stay blessed.